Hello there. Welcome back to the Random Show, episode number 113, with your host, AgostinhoZinga. This is Random Show, episode number 113. I think it should be 113. If it is 113, then I do apologize. But thank you, those of you who are here tuning into the episode, Random Show, episode number 113. Big up in the stream chat hanging in there. Big up Morgan fan. 10 minutes, yeah. Black man, 10 minutes. You know the vibes, you know how it is. I had to gather my resources, to be fair. I had a few technical difficulties, and for some reason Streamable's down, I think, or it won't allow me to open a certain amount of tabs, so I had to kind of restart everything. But hey, it is what it is. We're here, ready to go, ready to stream and to pod and speak about all the lovely comedy stuff that you know that I love to speak about and you guys love to listen to. Okay, so there it is. Big up in the stream chat. Big up Josie Masters, back so soon. First I'm too late, then I'm back so soon. I don't know what to do, man. You guys confuse me. Big up Uche, big up Sean, big up everybody streaming in here, piling in on here, the hundreds, the thousands, the millions of you who are going to be watching this after the fact. I do appreciate every single one of you as per usual. If you are watching this live stream and you enjoy what you see and you want to help the kid out, please make sure that you're smashing the like button down below. That would be really appreciated. And of course, if you're listening to this after the fact on the podcast apps, which I'll get uploaded after the stream's finished and whatnot, as soon as I added the timestamps, then make sure that you also leave me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening that on, so people can see that there's an engaged audience that loves this stuff, that wants to hear more of it. So if I go out there and get some filthy people to come and sponsor this Phillips stream and I sell out for the dollar so I can buy myself more Rick Owens, it will look more worthwhile because there's engagement on it. So if you want to help out the kid, that'll be greatly appreciated. If you want to help out the kid, that'll be greatly appreciated. If you don't want to do it, then I also understand, because asking people to do things is a bit mad. But regardless, moving on. So in my head, there's not much to talk about, but there's some stuff to talk about that I didn't speak about. So I'm going to oscillate between them. So I'm going to oscillate between some stuff that you may have seen before 7 or 8 days ago. I know, because I haven't been streaming for that long. I've been away and whatnot, living life. So I haven't been able to keep up with loads of stuff, so I do apologize. So if I do go over some stuff that you've heard already, then make sure that you just leave it in the background and don't pay attention to it. Whatever you want to do, I'll just come back later. But I'm going to go over some old stuff, some new stuff, old stuff, new stuff, and kind of oscillate between the two. Personally for me, I don't know if it's you guys are the same, but when I've got YouTubers I like to listen to, or people I like to listen to on podcasts and stuff, talk about things, I don't necessarily care when they get around to talking about the thing that I want to hear them speak about. I just want to hear them speak about it. But I do know there's an audience of people who also get annoyed if I speak about stuff like 3, 4, 5 days later. I don't know personally why, because I don't really give a shit, but I understand why people can be like, you know what, this is old news, move on. But whatever, like, I've just got around to it now, so please forgive me. I'm going to try and do my best and kind of oscillate between the both. Anyways, moving on. So quickly, to get on topic, there's some mad drama happening with No Jumper. Most of it is pretty redacted and I don't really want to get into it. It basically involves some former hosts of No Jumper who've now gone to do their own thing, and they're essentially trying to make sense of the whole fallout, because I think deep down a lot of these ex No Jumper hosts, whether it's AD, Lush, Terrell, Smack, Duno, HOUSEPHONE, Blasey, Yuri, all these guys who left, Potlord, I think deep down they all know, as much as we know as fans, that that was a real dumb situation that could have been rectified, and they really ruined a really good thing. It didn't need to end the way it ended. And if cooler heads would have prevailed, if Adam 22 wouldn't have been such a dickhead, if everybody would have kind of lowered their pride or put their egos to one side and just willing to just kind of talk things out and work it out, they could have. And they could have had the benefit of being able to have the No Jumper bag coming in, the clout you're getting from that, the exposure you get from that, and doing their own thing. They didn't need to all just completely ditch the kind of quote unquote job and the employee status just to do their own thing. They could have done both at the same time. But I think for most of them, it's probably led to the, it's for the better, probably, especially someone like a Terrell. I think he's probably gain a little bit of confidence of going out and doing on his own. Back on Fig is doing bits, Fig Community World, they're kind of doing bits with that as well. So clearly there's some there's been some steam behind these guys that's been built up because of how badly they were treated on a jumper. But in general, it's all kind of, I feel like the undercurrent of it is that these guys are still trying to make sense of how such a good thing ended on such bad terms. And part of the beef, you're seeing Lush now beefing with basically everybody. Now it's basically come out off the back of him interviewing Crip Mac. I think there were some issues behind him interviewing Crip Mac, and allegedly Crip Mac's girl or not girl, Lupe, recommended Crip Mac to go on Lush's channel, even though his channel hasn't really got any steam behind it, and maybe he could have gone somewhere else to get his first post jail interview. And that interview was meant to be done on Lupe's channel, but then Lush put on his own channel, and then he got all the props for it and all the views and all the metrics, and that's been an issue. And then Lupe's house lit on fire, and now everyone's donating, but Lush didn't donate. And then when he got pressed to do it, he did it, and you donate $50. Then it came out that Lush may have had an issue with AD back in the day, and that's why it whole stemmed with the whole like, oh, him leaking the private conversation he had with Adam about Adam wanting to move AD on was because AD, sorry, it was because Lush, all these fucking dumb nonsense I got in my head, because Lush allegedly had an issue with AD because AD might have fucked Lush's girl, but we don't know who Lush's girl was, and maybe it was the former host of Flipping No Jumper that used to be on there, the girl that's black, I'm not sure her name, but she left before, who knows, loads of madness, of the issues. But aside from that, there's a one continuing narrative that's always kind of interesting to kind of see from the outside in, because sometimes I can identify a little bit with HOUSEPHONE, because I think I have elements of running towards the fire of being a fuck up, even though I know it's gonna burn. There are elements in me that I recognize. There are elements in my own personality and the way I carry myself sometimes I can see in HOUSEPHONE a little bit, right? And this is a page or a screenshot, sorry, taken from the No Jumper subreddit of V2. I think someone posted on there, so big up you whoever posted it. And it's taken from HOUSEPHONE's Instagram stories, and he writes as follows: update, if you're waiting to get stuff you bought from my Instagram stories a couple weeks ago, DM me your address and shit again. So HOUSEPHONE, formerly of No Jumper, now of Reconnected, or is it Reconnected? Yeah, Reconnected, is basically telling people on his Instagram stories that, hey, anyone that bought stuff from me directly, cash in hand, from Instagram stories, like old t-shirts, I'm guessing, you know, shoes from his company, the Dice something, whatever the name is called, or whatever it may be, that he hasn't got a copy of everybody's details and addresses, he didn't make a note of it, like message him again so he knows where to send his stuff to. And this is like a typical scamming thing that all these guys do, right? Where they essentially put out these calls, or people, hey, do you want to make some money? Do you want to collab, whatever, in an effort to get fans to send them money, you know? And then they take the money, pocket it, and then they deliver or render services much later. So whether it's delivering a verse, getting you to do an interview, sending out merch, or stuff that you've legitimately bought, it always is the delay. There's never like an instant easy ship. It's always like you send them money, you don't get anything back. But with HOUSEPHONE in particular, this is like a common narrative that kind of runs through his life, right? He's always kind of fucking up and never kind of following through, even with his business he's got with his shoe stuff. People seem to like his shoes. I don't necessarily am a big fan of them. I think the price tag's a bit crazy, but people seem to like them. And he can't even do right by just sending his fans shoes on time. There's always a delay. There's always something going on. And it's kind of a sign, it's a fuck up, and a sign of like maybe of a drug addict type of behavior, where you're always in need of like a couple of dollars, $100, $200, $500 that you can go on and scam people. So it's just so you can go pick up, because I guess that extra bit of money is stuff that you're not willing to take out of your company account, or stuff that you're not willing to take out of your salary when it comes in, when your invoice comes in, but you want to have that little pocket change to be able to go pick up a quick 8-ball or whatnot. And that's what is kind of giving me a bit of nitty kind of, you know, crack addict kind of vibes. But the reason why I wanted to highlight this is I'm interested to know, what is it about us, people from the outside, fans, friends, whatever it may be, why is it that we always give people like this second, third, fifth, fourth, seventh opportunities? Because I feel like in life I've had similar occasions in my life, and maybe I still do have some now, where I've continually fucked up. I've continually done things that I feel like aren't representing me the best, and clearly are things that people don't like, right? So you keep fucking up, you're gonna promise you're gonna do amends, you don't do amends, but for some reason people also keep giving you second, third, fourth, fifth, seventh, eighth, ninth chances, even though they know deep down at your fundamental core you're a fuck up. But I think in some walks of life, karma does come and slap you around the face. Real life consequences do happen, and whatever goodwill you had vanishes. It does happen, but in some cases you are lucky and you just get away with it, despite how much fuck ups, how much you fuck up, despite how much mistakes you make, how many people you disappoint. Somehow life rewards you, if that's the right way to say it. And the first person I can think about is like a Dark Side Phil, DSP. Right? He's a reprehensible, horrendous, scamming, lying, cheating dude, right? But in some way, shape, or form, he's managed to construct a life for himself where he's still able to make 100,000 a year from a combination of his terrible content and also kind of fleecing his fans and pretending he's always like living on a breadline when he makes enough money to support himself and his family easily. Right, and he obviously, uses whatever money he has left over for like, crazy gambling thing with WWE champions. But he, by all accounts, is a horrible human being. But still, for some reason, life hasn't, in the way that it would to regular people. If you did that in a workplace, you just would work terrible jobs until you wouldn't have any more jobs. You probably wouldn't have a wife. You probably wouldn't have a family. You maybe wouldn't even have a home. Life, like real life, kind of hits you that way. But some people, they just continually get away with it. And maybe you're kind of enabling it a little bit, like the fans of HOUSEPHONE, like people like this. You only have yourself to blame. If you bought anything from somebody via the Instagram stories, maybe you have yourself to blame for trusting that person to deliver on their promise to send you said items. Like, you should have never ever believed them in the first place. You should have always taken what they were saying or the promises they were making with a pinch of salt, or you should have come into it thinking, you know what, this could turn left at any occasion as well. But people don't do that, and I'm curious to know what the reason is of people giving fuck-ups, eternal fuck-ups, opportunity to make amends or to just fuck them over again and again and again. And again, like I was saying before, I'm speaking on it semi-biographically from my own point of view, because I feel like I've had similar type of traits. So sometimes when I look at HOUSEPHONE, I think to myself like, rah, man, you have everything going for you. You're clearly a charismatic dude. You clearly have are able to, do well on camera and present content in a certain way. You've got a cool fan base who ride or die for you. All that malarkey's going on. But for some reason, you just can't get it together. So in that sense, it's really strange, because I think personally, when you're the shit, like, when you've got something, when you have potential, when, like, if you got your life in order, you could get certain places. But for some reason, you're just unable to do it, even though it's in your grasp. And it's not like you're like delusional, by the evidence that you have when you put in like 10%, 20%, 50, 80% of effort, you see the fruits that you get, and you feel yourself, hold on, if I could just commit to this life of just doing things the right way and living life that would be beneficial to me, then look where I could get to. But you never do that. I wonder what that's about on both fronts. So why do people give people that second, third, fifth, 10th chances? And why do the people themselves not just get it together? Because, the fans who are willing to PayPal you money for stuff over Instagram stories, those are your real fans. Those are your real ride or dies. They're probably going to be there for you more than probably your own family and friends. Those people are really real. The fact that they're willing to send their hard-earned money to you via Instagram stories directly to your PayPal is insane, especially knowing your track record. And you can't even follow through and just do them a solid and just give them their stuff on time. You have to post up this Instagram story which essentially says, I use your money as a quasi loan. Right? I didn't take any note of your details, and I'm just gonna use your money to buy drugs and chill out. That is terrible, reprehensible shit. And I don't know what it is about me. I guess because I've spoken about it before, like, as much as you guys enjoy watching my streams, I'm also an actual fan. Like, I'm in the comments, I'm watching shit, I'm in the forums, I'm on the Reddits, like, I'm on the Discords, like, I'm a fan of people. So when I see people fucking over their fans, it really kind of irks me, because it makes me think like that could be me, because I'm a fan of people. I love like things. I love what people do, cool stuff. I'll let them know. I'll DM them. I'll send them a fucking message. I'll at them on fucking social media. I'll leave a comment. Like, I'm actually engaging people. So if I went as far as buying a piece of merch from you via your Instagram stories, and you can't even make a note of my address and send me the shit on time, like, and you have to make a public declaration, like you're getting to it on your Instagram stories again to update people, I'll be so pissed off, like really pissed off. And I don't know why people do that. Like the ones nearest to them, the ones actually helping them, they take them for granted. It's really unfortunate. But anyway, you know, maybe has one to figure out, maybe you wouldn't. But the one thing that I'd always go back to, my constant sort of running thread, is that I really do believe in the gospel of letting people fuck up. No, sorry, letting people fuck up. Letting people fuck up. I believe in the gospel of letting people fuck up. Honestly, I'm gonna die on that hill. I think this adage that everyone is gonna get it together at some point is insane. Some people just don't figure it out ever. No matter how much resources they have, how many friends around them, whatever, they just never figure it out. And I think that's fine, because they are quite entertaining to watch from afar, right? Just spiral out of control. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Let people fuck up. That's my point in contention here. What people saying here? People saying here, glutton for punishment. Yeah, I agree with you, Joseph Masters. True. Sarek saying sucks when the chances run out. Exactly. Uche says if people keep giving you chances, where's the incentive to change? Exactly. And I honestly do think the older you get, the less likely you are to change anyway. I think in general, most people don't want to change. That's why they don't change, because it's just harder to do so. If you can get away with being a douche, with being, or however you are, good or bad, and it doesn't actually hurt you in any real way, shape or form, why bother changing? Cool, it is what it is. But I also think the idea of people are going to change at some point and the penny will drop, is like, no. Most people don't. We all know those people, so in our family, in our close family, friends and shit, that just never change. It is what it is. Look at Logan's taking people's life savings and laughing about it. Why do people do different? Not that I'm excusing behavior. Yeah, true. Exactly, it's true. No, I believe you. I agree with you. Like all that stuff I hate, I've always hated it. I think that my least favorite part, or my least favorite era, my least favorite era of like social media influencing, content creation, fan engagement thing was definitely the NFT, crypto coin era. That for me was my least favorite era, because that legitimately was influencers, celebrities alike, essentially exploiting their fan base, making money, hand over fist themselves, but knowing full well that most of their fans are going to get fleeced. Like that for me was the worst period, and I think that was just before the pandemic. Everyone was doing it, crypto coins, NFTs, and flogging it to their fan bases, and essentially getting people in debt, getting them addicted to weird gambling and stock nonsense that doesn't make any sense, and just really fucking them over financially just so they could line their pockets. That for me, I think, is reprehensible. More so for people that are like at the top, the ones that like have no excuse, that have way more money, day to day. They don't need to, what's really another million from a company that does crypto going to really make a difference when you're already making 500,000 a month anyway already? Easy. You can make that in 2 months. Like you can't wait 2 months for $1 million to come in your account clean off your hard work. You have to kind of fleece and shill your fans. Like, nah, I'm not for that. Anyway, moving on. So I'm sure most of you guys are aware of this story here in the UK about a TV presenter called Philip Schofield having to step down from his role at ITV, a TV channel we have here in the UK, because of his affair with a much younger man at the same TV station, right? And it's been a really crazy story to kind of, watch from afar, because essentially Philip Schofield is a bit of a household name. He's one of the co-hosts on This Morning, which is a really popular morning show here in the UK, mostly for mums and unemployed folks, because it comes on, during, I think, it's This Morning, so it's any time between 6 a.m. to 12, I guess. So most people are at work around those times, but it's a really popular show. They do cooking stuff, they have segments on news, they interview people. It's just a typical show that you'd imagine your mum or your aunties or your uncles would be watching and stuff, right? So it kind of is what it is, and people like it for what they like it. And the chemistry between Philip Schofield and his co-host, Willie Bolly something, whatever her name is really fun, really cool, and they've kind of had a lot of kind of viral giggly moments. Anyway, the funny thing about this for me, more so about this, is that obviously it kind of paints Philip Schofield terribly, because the affair with this younger man at ITV was, it's been rumored that when they first met he was 15. So even if they weren't, romantically involved when he was that age, there is an aspect to it that looks like grooming, where maybe, you know, he waited until the kid was illegal, then they got into an actual relationship or whatever, maybe sexual in that way, in the same way that dude 16 has been accused of doing his thing, right? Where he kind of met this girl when she was 18, and then when she was 21, that's when they got a relationship. So it's not technically, you know, pedo shit, but it's definitely on the cusp of it, and it's definitely sus. It's definitely something that you look at your friend like with a side eye. The thing for me that's fascinating about this story, the thing that's fascinating for me is the aspect or the idea or the potential that you could have two pedos in one family. Don't you find that really interesting? And I've never seen that before in my life. Number one, I think it's probably the chances and the percentile of two brothers in one family being gay is definitely super, super, you know, low, right? In terms of that, I'd imagine so. It's probably not likely that you're going to get two siblings in one family, especially the same sex, who happen to be gay. But then to have two siblings from the same family who are gay and who are also into kids, that's also a bit wild. I don't think I've seen that ever. That's a really clear part. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, Philip Schofield's brother, only a few months ago, actually not a few months ago, it felt like a few months ago, in May of this year, right, was jailed for child abuse. Philip Schofield's brother, Timothy, was jailed of child abuse in the 19th of May. Can you imagine that? So Philip Schofield gets done for essentially having an affair with a much younger man at ITV, which I think is against the rules. I think most broadcasting companies with their host, they don't really allow you to have even consensual adult relationships where you're both single or whatever coming into it. I don't think that's usually allowed. They usually, they usually go against that. And I think anybody that's worked in a workplace, especially in a bar or a restaurant, mostly where you're contacting people, or you're in contact or with your, fellow colleagues a lot on the floor, bar floor, shop floor, you would know it is kind of annoying when two people start hooking up in the same workplace. Especially if they're actually in a relationship, it is a bit annoying. When they're fucking, it can be a little bit whatever, funny. But when two people are actually in a relationship at workplace, it can be annoying. So I can definitely understand if you're a corporation, broadcasting company, it's probably not the best in terms of morale and professionalism and just, vibes to have people kind of hooking up all over the place. You probably have to put it in writing and contracts that, hey, this is not allowed. With some very, with some exceptions here and there, but all of it's not allowed. But the thing that makes this interesting, if I'm not mistaken, the whole premise of this is that he steps down, but this comes out, right? And then he also then reveals when it comes out that he's gay. So that's what makes it extra sussy, that he led a life as supposedly a straight man when secretly he's gay. But then when he does come out, he only comes out because he's been exposed or maybe being blackmailed behind the scenes, who knows. Then it comes out he had to quit and get fired because of this affair he had with a much younger man. So imagine all those fucking things going on around your head, if you're Philip or someone in his family. And then on top of that, imagine the fact that his brother just recently got done for child abuse. That's a really crazy thing about it, that you have two brothers in one family who are both technically pedos. That's pretty wild. But the people that I feel the worst for are definitely the family. His family, sorry, right? His wife and his two daughters. Like, can you imagine how that must feel? The whirlwind of emotions they must be going through. To, number one, find out that supposedly their dad is cheating on their mum, right? And they're going through some issues they're going through as parents do. Adult shit that as a kid you can't really get involved in, but you're disappointed in your dad, you're maybe pissed off at how your mum's reacting to it. It's just going to cause lots of issues. You're thinking, are they going to get divorced? You don't want that, you're maybe siding with one person, siding with the other. All the issues are going on. Then you find out along the way that it wasn't just like an affair, conventional one. It was with a much younger man. So it definitely lifts up all sorts of questions regarding your dad's sexuality. Then he comes out and admits that he's actually gay. So what has his relationship with your mum been this whole entire time? And then of course you're obviously thinking about your fucking uncle who recently just got done for being a pedo. Can you imagine what that must do? And this is something I don't think that gets highlighted enough in these sort of stories. The damage it causes for the families involved. Like, think about the victim involved in this kind of a little bit, right? The kid who's, I think, in his 20s or something. His family also. The parents are probably going to be judged by other parents. How do you allow Philip Schofield to be around you? It was clear that he was a nonce because, you know, ITV maybe protected it and knew about it. It was like one of the worst kept secrets around town, blah, blah, blah. That's the damaging part of it, I think about. Like, the people around it have to kind of suffer the consequence of it. Because I'm sure along the way, Philip Schofield's going to come out and try and paint himself as the hero and try and, you know, fly the flag of LGBTQ plus people and be like he's living his life free, and he was going to make himself into a martyr. He's going to have a cover on Vanity Fair talking about his sexuality. He's going to try and spin this some way, right, in some ridiculous, you know, horrible, crass way, in effort to kind of make himself look like the hero in this story, or look like the victim in this story. But the real victims are the family, who had absolutely nothing to do with it and are now by proxy being dealt a horrible hand. I'm sure the mentions of these young girls are fucking awful. The comments are disgusting. Probably they probably deleted any social media you already have. Imagine what the mum's going through, having to figure out, the wife's having to figure out to get around the idea of like your love of your life, the person you want to spend the whole life with, has been living a secret life. They've been secretly gay. And I think most women, from what I've heard, speaking to women, you know, here and there and whatnot about certain things, one of the worst nightmares that most women always have is, you know, their husband coming home to them and telling them not only that they're breaking up with them, but that they, you know, that they've always been gay. Like, that is a horrible, you know, thing to kind of deal with at the best of times. Imagine happening like this. Absolutely heinous. So Philip Schofield's out here stepping down from ITV, clearly admitting the affair. Let's quickly read this article here. Oh, it's not article, it's a news clipping, but whatever, you can get the idea of what that is about there. And of course the news there courtesy of the brother as well. But let's play a little bit actually of the Sky News clip here, see what they're saying.
We have some breaking news to bring you, and that is about Philip Schofield, the former presenter of ITV's This Morning programme, because this evening he has quit the broadcaster, and that follows further allegations about his private life. He has released a statement this evening. He's released it to the Daily Mail, and in it he admitted having a relationship with a younger man while he was still married before he came out. So let me read that statement to you.
So that's probably one of the worst things ever, that he released a statement via the fucking Daily Mail. That obviously proves that there's obviously some indication that there's probably more to this story than meets the eye. Maybe there's more to the kid or to the young man that he was kind of involved with. Maybe there's other people that he maybe have done things with that are going to also come out of the woodwork. But this is a very preemptive, let me get my narrative out. Let me also go to the most toxic of platforms in Daily Mail, who are probably willing to put whatever they want on there and kind of get them in my favor or get them under my good graces. Like, there's some level of damage control there. That definitely isn't a good sign. But the optics of it are horrible, isn't it? Like, you know, you come out, then you, like, you know, you come out, but then it comes out that you come out because of this. It's like, oof.
You're having a look at it now. I did have a consensual on-off relationship with a younger male colleague at This Morning. Contrary to speculation, whilst I met the man when he was a teenager and was asked to help him to get into television, it was only after he started to work on the show that it became more than just a friendship.
Imagine using that as an excuse. I know I only met him as a kid, but we only fucked when he was an adult. It's like, sometimes I wonder with some people, man, the lack of shame and embarrassment and just, I don't know, willingness to just admit fault and just say, hey, I fucked up there, is just insane. Like, it's insane. That's why sometimes I think some people at their core are just corrupted. Like, corrupted to their core. Their moral compass is just all over the shop. So there is no saving them. It just is what it is. But Jesus Christ, what a defense.
That relationship was unwise, but not illegal. It is now over. Mr. Schofield goes on to say that in an effort to protect my ex-colleague, I haven't been truthful about the relationship. But my recent, unrelated departure from This Morning fueled speculation and raised questions which have been impacting him. So for his sake, it is important.
So hold on. So he's basically saying he didn't quit This Morning because he was having an affair with this younger man. He quit it for some other reasons. What are the other reasons, bro? What are the other reasons? What could the other reasons be? What other reason could there to be to quit one of the most successful morning shows in UK history? Something that probably made him a millionaire, I would assume, twice, 3 times, 5 times, whatever over. something that probably was able to create a pathway for his kids to get into TV too, family and friends, right? The fact that he's got so much goodwill over there in ITV, maybe he got his hands in other pies, and he quits it out of the blue. Why would you quit that? That's like a job for life. That's a job literally you can do until you're old and grey. He's already old and grey, but you can do that forever and ever and ever. It's not a job that kind of requires you to be young and sprightly. So the fact that you quit it would raise alarm bells, especially when you see on screen that the chemistry between him and the Willy Bolly woman isn't what it was at one point. So people start asking questions.
For me to be honest, I am painfully conscious that I have lied to my employers at ITV, to my colleagues and friends, to my agents, to the media, and therefore the public, and most importantly of all, to my family. I was about to say, in this whole entire statement, you know what's funny about this whole entire statement? He speaks about the kid, the little twink that he's been hooking up with at ITV. He speaks about the twink more than he speaks about his own family. That is a really big indictment. I bet you any money, if you was to sit down his daughters and his wife and actually speak candidly to them about their dad, about their husband, and actually ask, you know, what he's like as a human being, I bet you the word narcissist would come out a few times, sociopath would come out a few times, self-absorbed would come out. Don't remember, he's a TV presenter, but there's definitely something that would come out about his personality, because to put that entire statement out and to not be thinking about your family, how that's impacted them, the embarrassment, the shame, the abuse they're getting online now with the trolls and shit, to not have them be at the front of your mind in every statement and just mention the twink first. I'm so very, very sorry, as I am for having been unfaithful to my wife. I have therefore decided to step down from the British Soap Awards, my last public commitment, and I am resigning from ITV with immediate effect.
Oh, really, dude? You're resigning? Cool, man.
Expressing my immense gratitude to them for all the amazing opportunities that they have given me. So that is the latest from Philip Schofield this evening. He said that he is stepping down from hosting the British Soap Awards. That was meant to be his last commitment, and he said he's resigning from ITV with immediate effect, and he's given this statement that I was just reading to you.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because for the longest time, people have always suspected that he was gay anyway. But, you know, in England, we have a history of like male TV presenters and just people in entertainment in general who are very kind of campy and have a particular kind of way they kind of, you know, act and stuff that typically people would think is gay, but it isn't. It's just be like a theater kid type of energy. So people just leave people alone and mind their business. It's kind of different to America. I think in America you'd be digging into it a little bit more. So maybe people just had their suspicions but didn't really care. You know, it is what it is. Let him live his life. But then it finally does come out, and it's like, okay, we're not surprised. But then when it does come out in this way, it's like, fucking hell. So what? ITV were covering his back and keeping it secret because they didn't want to, you know, let go of their fucking cash cow, whatever it may be. Maybe putting that kid, the twink, in harm's way as well by covering Philip Schofield's back. Like an open secret in the industry, his family and friends and other fucking colleagues in the industry protecting his back. It's just so weird. It's so weird, man. And the amount of grooming and abuse and fondness for young people and young kids and whatever that occurs in the entertainment industry is, for me, one of the most interesting and scary things about that scene. Because you'd think if you are a notable figure in the entertainment world, especially if you're, you know, and especially if you're single or whatnot, there's enough fans out there that you can smash that are of age who like you a lot that there would be no end to it. But you specifically go for the underage ones. That for me has always been the really interesting part of it. And this has been something that's been happening in Hollywood since the fucking 20s and shit, right? In the entertainment industry, like from Broadway to whatever, right? In the theater industry, TV, movies. It's just a thing that kind of runs through the history of time. Rape, abuse, harassment, you know, pedophile shit, like people living in the closet. Like it's always been a thing that kind of runs concurrent, but there's been this thing of like, you know, much older people liking really, really young people. To the point where people start thinking it's like, hey, are you a pedo or are you a creep? I don't really know. Is it grooming or are you just really interested in young people only? I don't really know, but bloody hell, man. Like I said before, the thing that blows my mind more so about this whole story still is the fact that there's two gay brothers in one family, which I think is rare. I'm just speaking out of us, man. I don't know if that's true, but I'd imagine to have two brothers in one family and have two of them be gay, that's really rare. And also to have two brothers in one family and have both of them be pedos, I think is ultra rare also. Like, I can't imagine that to be a common thing. But if people do know any more stories about like that, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to kind of see more, to be fair. But let's continue. Moving on from that one. The internet has really made it its business to kind of cast DAMSON IDRIS as being the kind of smitten, overly in love side of the partner in relationship with LOREY HARVEY. And I don't really understand why. I'm really confused, but I do understand why. I do understand that in social media, there is this thing that goes on with like celebrity couples where if one side of the fan base decides you're not good enough, you're not good enough. It just is what it is, right? But I just can't understand with the DAMSON IDRIS thing, because there was a period in time, maybe it was a couple of summers ago, where DAMSON IDRIS was like the guy on social media. Like, all the girls were thirsting over him, asking why he's single and blah, 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 blah. Like, there was a real kind of thirst for him online, it seemed like. But then something changed as soon as he hooked up with LOREY HARVEY, where she maybe is a bit more chill and reserved. He's more as a little bit more affectionate and outgoing with his kind of praise of her, and everyone kind of makes it seem like they're not in love, or that he's doing too much. And I really can't understand this, because you'd think you'd want, even though this shouldn't be this, because you should be living your own life, but you know how some people are weirdly have this weird link with fucking celebrities and live their life through what celebrities do. You would imagine that if you are somebody that kind of views or gets your information about how people should act with women and shit, men especially, you would imagine that somebody like DAMSON IDRIS and how he kind of acts all lovey-dovey and head over heels with LOREY HARVEY, that should be something that you should be encouraged. It should be something you should be getting, you should be putting out there more, where you're out there outwardly claiming your girl, you're being very, you're doing loads of PDA and making it known that you're lucky and stuff, and really being loving and going over the top with praise with her. Like, that should be what people should be encouraging, shouldn't it? But for some reason it isn't. Everyone's kind of chipping in and saying that, hey, this isn't it, she doesn't like you like that, and just basically playing out their own fan fiction in their head. And this is a tweet that he put out, based on a clip here taken from the Beyonce Renaissance tour here in London. And there's a viral clip of DAMSON IDRIS hugging Lori Taylor from the back and basically kissing all over her, and she's kind of acting, nonchalant, concentrating on the show, just being chill. And everyone's basically made up their own narrative that it's proof that LOREY HARVEY doesn't like him. And because LOREY HARVEY has a history of, fucking and moving on, people think that he's going to be the next one. But I try to understand why he's the next one, personally. The tweet, he says, everybody, every day chat, people don't rest, please man, mind your business. And there's some tweets here from people on social media. It hurts my soul seeing my brother go out like this, man. Not only is it sad, but it's in 4K where his great grandkids could see. People posting a picture of Michael B. Jordan saying soon that'll be DAMSON IDRIS doing that kind of cool thing. Another one saying, I'll be so mad if there's a video of me and my man and strangers, and saying, I don't like him. I'm so anti-social media relationships. I'm sorry. Another person saying, consequences for this are going to be worse than when Teddy stole 70 million. And the last one saying, you can see all in her face, she don't give a fuck for real, be having these dudes in love and lost till she gets tired. I don't know. I just think it's weird. Even if it does end in tears and DAMSON just ends up having that scene like fucking Michael B. Jordan where he's at the basketball game and he's like looking lost and shit. If that's the case, let him do it, innit? Let him live his life. Let him do it. Let him live his life. I don't see any problem with it. Moving on from that, I want to quickly mention my appreciation and salute to one ROMELU LUKAKU. Big up LUKAKU for somehow out of the blue bagging fucking Megan Thee Stallion. What an absolute win for Rom. On social media, especially football social media, he gets a lot of stick for how he plays, his accent, how he speaks about himself, how he walks, how he goes on. And the fact that he managed to fucking bag Megan Thee Stallion is an absolute win. No lie, that's the win and the fucking turnaround of the century, especially considering the Champions League final is coming very soon. Inter Milan versus Man City. And the fact that Lukaku has Megan Thee Stallion on his arm now, best believe we're going to see the best version of ROMELU Lukaku you've ever seen play football for Inter Milan. So if you're wondering who to bet on, if you're a betting person and you're going to be watching fucking Champions League, and you're thinking Man City are going to absolutely destroy Inter Milan, which most people do believe, myself included, if Romelu Lukaku starts, or even if he comes off from the bench, put your money on Inter Milan making the upset of all upsets. Because if she's in the stands watching him, Roma's going to show out on the pitch. He's going to fucking show out, I guarantee you. So if you're doubting, you're going to make some money, and you want to, you know, a little bit of a fucking good odds and shit, please make sure you put some money into Milan. Romelu Lukaku is definitely going to come strong on that one. So big up Rom, legend. Moving on from this, talk about this quickly, courtesy of TMZ. Regarding the Bahamas nightmare, video shows chaos after a teen jumps in from a cruise, search called off. Some teenager decided to jump off the side of a cruise as a dare, and if you look at the video, I'm not going to play it because it's horrifying, but if you look at the video, somebody slowed it down, and there's a section of the video where it looks like there may be a shark, and it feels like there was it was like a shark infested waters. So I'm not sure if that's true. It might be just a shadow, it might be, I don't know, something to do with the boat underneath, I don't know, but it looked like some sort of shadowy figure underneath the fucking ocean as he's jumping into it. And it looked like in the video, he jumps into this ocean, everyone's screaming at him, some people are bigging him up and shit, and then he starts swimming away from the fucking boat. So maybe he saw the sharks. But anyway, regardless, they called off the search, and he hasn't been found since. But let's read the article. A multi-day search for a Louisiana teen who jumped from the Sunset Cruise in the Bahamas has come to a tragic end, and the last known sighting of him was caught in a harrowing video. Footage surfaced of 18-year-old Cameron Robbins, who had just graduated from high school in Baton Rouge, swimming in the open seas at night near Alton Island last week, where he was on Sunset Cruise with a bunch of his peers celebrating his achievement. I don't think I've ever been in a position, I don't know if you guys are the same, where peer pressure would drive me to do this. Never in my life. Never. I don't think I've ever been there. The most peer pressures maybe do is maybe do drugs or maybe drink, but something that would physically harm me, it's not that funny or worth it. And I would never let somebody, and plus as well, I think personally for me, I'm the kind of person, the more you tell me to do something, the more I won't do it, if that makes any sense. So peer pressure could never really work for me in that way, because I just wouldn't do it because you asked me to do it, sort of thing. But I can't imagine for some people, if you do have that tendency to, you know, bow to peer pressure, what it could do to you. Well, you just said they found his remains. Really? They found his remains? No, don't say that. Let me see if this is true. So live and direct updates on the go. Let's see if this is true. No way. Robbins fell from the boat. They say remains? Let's see. Let's see if they find the remains. Did they find these remains? Camera. Okay, so far, no, we don't have anything so far. Remains issue. Okay, so maybe they haven't found these remains so far, but I'm guessing they will soon. Anyway, let's continue. Word is Cameron went overboard on his own accord, and not just that, but apparently it was on a dare. In this clip, you can tell these buddies were getting a kick out of it. That is until he vanished under the boat and out of view of everyone, who began screaming at him to grab a life preserver that he'd been thrown, which was pretty far away, and he didn't end up reaching it. Once he disappeared, everyone began to panic. Imagine being on a party boat like that, right? You're 1 minute you're in the fucking boat, chilling, having shots, drinking, dancing, singing along, and then suddenly you're out on deck, fucking around, and then a boy jumps into the ocean. You're thinking it's just a prank. He's gonna come back in on the deck at some point, drenched in water. You're gonna be taking the piss out of him and taking selfies, but then it transpires that he disappears and you never see him again. RIP to this kid, man. But a part of me feels like this is kind of natural selection at work. If you're dumb enough to do this, then it was always on the cards for you that your life was going to end this way, as tragic as it may seem. Do you know what I mean? Because I can't imagine. Since he went missing, a multi-day search is undertaken by the Bahamian authorities and US Coast Guards, but Robbins was never found. The search has now been called off after several unsuccessful days in the ocean. Days. Like, come on. For scouring the area for any sign of him. It sounds like Cameron has presumed dead, as the Coast issued a statement saying, "We offer our sincere condolences to Cameron Robins' family and friends. His family flew into Bahamas last week. The prayer vigils have been held for him for a few days now." Absolute baby, man. His family also spoke out. "The Bahamian government has called off the rescue for the Cameron, and we're returning to Baton Rouge. We want to thank the Bahamian government and the U.S. Coast Guard, the United Cajun Navy, and the Congressman Garrett Graves for everything that they have done for us. In this time of grief, we thank our family and friends and well wishers, and we request privacy to remember our son and mourn his loss." Just graduated from fucking school as well. What are you doing, kid, man? Relax. Like, God almighty. And how much of a dare, how amazing is it really to jump off a boat? It's not that big of a deal, really. I don't think so. It's not enough to fucking make you a fucking star and to make you a legend or whatever group of your friends you have, really. It's not that impressive. So I don't know why he did it personally, but fuck, you know, when you're a kid, the things that you do that you think will make sense, it's just insane. And sometimes you get away with it. Sometimes you actually get away with it, but most time you don't. So RIP Cameron, I guess. RIP to Cameron. Next on the list, a fucking fuck up shit situation. Like, I can't imagine what she's going through, but I also don't have any remorse or sympathy when it comes to people drink driving. I think it's the most reprehensible thing ever, especially in the era, in the times that we're living in now, with the prevalence of like Ubers and stuff. There is no excuse for drinking and driving. I don't care what it is, especially because for whatever reason, the person that's drinking and driving always is the person that never suffers any kind of fatality. It's always the person they hit in an accident that has to suffer some sort of injury, or maybe they die, which I fucking hate. It fucking tears me apart when I see those stories of somebody decided to drink drive after a night out and crashing into a family, and then the whole entire family passes away, but the drink driver just goes away from it unfazed. I fucking hate that shit. But anyway, this is a story courtesy of TMZ regarding DANI LEIGH. It says that she'd been arrested for a DUI and hit and run. Alleged victim had fractured spine. DANI LEIGH, the baby mother of the baby and an R&B singer herself in her own regard, you know, embroiled in controversy for a while before the pandemic, all that nonsense with the baby, had been getting back to some semblance of going out and being about and putting out songs again, and now has been hit with this. Fucking hell. It continues. It says, DANI LEIGH has spent an Memorial Day weekend in jail after cops say that she hit somebody with a car while driving under the influence. A singer, who's also the baby's ex and mother of his kids, was arrested early Tuesday morning in Miami Beach, where police claim she was involved in a DUI hit and run, which ended in serious back injury for the alleged victim, who was riding a moped. I do like the fact, because again, I've read online, I'm not sure if it's true, I don't live there, but I've heard that Florida has some really, really tight rules, or strict rules and laws when it comes to drink driving, which I like, because you'd imagine Florida being a place where a lot of people drink and do drugs, so there's probably a prevalence of people and a high likelihood of people being involved in DUIs and hit and runs. So I do like that they recognize that their state is the way it is, but they also have laws in place where if you break it and you do that sort of thing, you can be punished really aggressively. And if I'm not mistaken, these are felonies, so this is some serious shit that's going to be on her record. She's probably going to spend some time behind bars too. Like, fucking hell. It says, according to the police report obtained by TMZ, DANI was seen by several witnesses driving at a high rate of speed and swerving in and out of lanes near Miami Beach. Eventually, copy says she struck somebody who was on a motorized scooter and dragged the moped for about a block. Somebody flagged down a neighboring officer, who then initiated a stop. Imagine just minding your business on a fucking electric scooter, checking your phone where you want to go, like I would do sometimes, checking your phone to see on the maps what fucking late night eateries open. Is Pizza Hut open? Is Popeyes open? Is McDonald's open? Just checking where you're going to go eat, or checking where you can get some booze late night. And then randomly some fucking R&B singer in her G-Wagon just plows into you without you realizing and drags you a fucking block. Can you imagine? Drags your you're minding your business. You probably got your slides on, some shorts, a rinky-dink vest, like I've got, just like chilling, minding your business, and just hits you with a fucking shiny black gold green G-Wagon. In the paperwork, the cop describes Dani as smelling of alcohol, and he conducted a field sobriety test which says she failed, and she later then took a breathalyzer. Is there something in American law, you guys tell me in the chat, where if you're under the influence but then you run away, is it like something you can prevent yourself from being breathalyzed? Is that true? Tell me. I think there's some loophole, right? Like if you're drinking under the influence, driving under the influence, and you get stopped, or you're in a crash and you run away and you come back. Is that true? Tuesday says it's hit and run. Yes, you can flee the scene. You can flee the scene, and that technically means what? The DUI is not. So then they can't breathalyze you because they have no idea whether or not you drank at home or at the scene, right? So you're just saying, yeah, if you hit and run and make it home and get inside before the cops stop you, then yeah, you're golden. Thank you, Uche, but that is some scummy shit, isn't it? That is some scummy, deplorable shit. You hit somebody, unintentionally fair, but then you drive off, don't check on them, go home, drink some water, spray yourself with some mouthwash or whatever, in the hopes that you're going to get off of it so you don't have to breathalyze it, and then leave the person on the street, bloodied, internal organs all over the place, spleen, spinal cracked. That's some disgusting shit, man. But yeah, thanks for the loophole info there. Thanks to Uche. The officer claims she blew 0.15 and 148, nearly twice the legal limit. Dani is cuffed and taken to jail, where she was booked in for 3 felony charges. Driving under the influence and leaving the scene of the crash, serious bloody injury, DUI, damaged property. As for the person who was hit, cops claim that she's treated at a hospital where we were told the doctors that she's going to make that she suffered a kidney laceration. That's a cut in the kidney, and a spinal fracture. Yo, a spinal fracture is no joke, because I know how much it hurts when you're doing deadlifts and you don't kind of wear a belt, or you don't you don't brace yourself properly, and you pull a muscle next to your spine, like, in that kind of spinal area, you pull a muscle there, you strain your muscle. I know how much that hurts, so I can only imagine how much it must hurt to fracture your fucking spine. Like that is going to be, especially on a fucking scooter. Like, God almighty. What's Martin Moose saying here? Remember John Jones running from the scene after hitting the pregnant lady? He ran and got lesser charge. Oh yeah, true. You're right. Thanks, Martin Moose. You're definitely right. So Ucho's right also. You just have to get home first. But she couldn't get home because she didn't know that she had the fucking scooter and the person underneath her G-Wagon. So it's a bit too obvious there. But yeah, this is really bad news for her, personally, because I would assume, because you're looking at some sort of civil suit, obviously the criminal proceedings, the damage it will do to your reputation. It also kind of puts some validity to what the baby was saying about her. She's clearly somebody that can't handle her booze. The driving home drunk thing, as a mother, new mum, is fucking insane. I know mums need time to unwind and shit, but doing that in that way is irresponsible. If you're gonna go out and get trashed and you're leave the baby with the flipping grandmother or whatnot, then at least you could do is organize a car. Especially in this era, I think there's no reason to be driving under the influence. But fucking hell, man, what an incredible story. And yeah, it's probably not going to end well for her in this case, because this is looking kind of serious. Unless they figure something out, I don't really see it ending well. Anyway, moving on from that one. Speak about this video courtesy of Unique regarding Joey Diaz, explaining why he's quitting the podcast. I'm actually surprised. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really surprised about this, that he's quitting it. I would have assumed when he switched to being audio only, because he made the announcement recently. I think I made a clip about it where Joey Diaz explained that he's only going to be doing audio only if he's podcast, no more video, which is not that uncommon. Bill Burr, one of my favorite podcasts I listen to on a weekly, he does his show without any sort of video on it, and I think he has somebody upload it on his channel also with no video. So I also love that, but I'm surprised that Joey Diaz, knowing that his fans will stick by him if he did audio only, is going to do no podcast at all and just stick to doing Patreon content. I'm surprised. But on another end, I'm also not surprised, having listened to a lot of his stuff over the years and being a fan of Joey Diaz. I also know that he's been kind of burned out by things in general. He's not essentially loving life as a comedian, loving life as an entertainer in general, in the limelight. He's kind of had it in general, and I think that's kind of honorable to be like, you know what, I'm not being my best self on these places and these spots and these platforms. I'm not giving my all. I don't really care that much about it anymore. I'm going to gracefully bow out instead of like having the game bow out for you. I think more people need to do that. But these guys and girls in the comedy entertainment industry, once they get a taste of the fame and the money, they just can't let go. There's no aspect of them kind of unwinding or scaling things back. It always just is constant fame. So there's something I kind of like about the idea of Joey Diaz stepping away from it, but I'm just a little bit surprised. So this is a clip taken from Unique's. Joey Diaz, it says, explains why he's quitting his podcast. Let's play the clip.
Had an interesting couple days. For starters, again, I'm very sorry about the podcast. Listen, man, I started the podcast to get out of my funk. It helped me. I didn't just want to be a fucking bumpy sitting here. But let's face it, once I got my head together, I still couldn't fucking function. I still couldn't think of things, and I just got sick and tired of faking the funk. I'm a lot better with you guys on this podcast. It's a little bit more personal. I tried to carry this over into the joint, but it just wasn't working, you know. I did Andrew Schultz yesterday, and again, you go on these podcasts. These podcasts are successful because of the energy, guys. My podcast had no energy no more. I was getting burnt out just by the powers that be. And it was just time to shut it down like I did with the comedy in January, just to see what the fuck you really want to do. I will continue the Patreon. This week we will not have a movie of the week because, to be honest with you guys, we were going to...
Anyway, you got the gist of it, right? You got just what you're saying. I personally think the Joey Diaz podcast died the moment Lee Sayat left the original pod, which was The Church of What's Happening Now. I think when Lee Sayat left, or they decided to end that when Joey Diaz wanted to move back home and be closer to his family, that's when the podcast ended. Even he did try to restart it and have something to do during the pandemic and lockdown. He didn't want to be with his family all the time and kind of wanted an outlet to speak about certain things and rant and whatnot. The joint was never going to replicate The Church of What's Happening Right Now. It ended when Lee Sayat left. But I also have to give Joey Diaz, I feel like, a lot of credit, because I feel like other people in his position, especially other comedians and stuff, would have tried to have paid for Lee Sayat to go and move out with him to New Jersey, or said to him to move out there with him so they could continue the show the same way, because they just couldn't let go of the, you know, attention that he got them and whatever it may be. But I feel like the fact that Joey Diaz took it upon himself, because I remember I'm a fan of Joey, so I pay attention to the show. I remember he specifically told Lee that he wanted him to go and live his life. He was always a bit guilty. He felt like that he was robbing Lee of his youth and stuff, which is dumb, because Lee loved fucking Joe Diaz and still loves him to this day. He was happy to be there, but for the longest time, Joey kind of felt a bit guilty that, you know, he was getting him hooked on drugs, he was getting him high all the time, he was taking up his time, that he wasn't going out and doing things by himself in terms of being a comedian or making it or doing a podcast, blah blah blah. And he maybe thought, in some respects also, he maybe had a fear that Lee Sayat might end up like a Brendan Schaub. He might just hitch his wagon to Joey, and in a way it means like he's entirely, you know, forever kind of tied to him, and it means that also Joey doesn't have agency in his own career, and he also has to kind of keep it going because he has this guy to depend on. So I felt like it was the most selfless move in his regard, Joey Diaz, to say, hey, Lee, you're still in your prime, you still have a lot of potential coming up, and you're young and shit, go out and explore life. You know what I mean? I'm going to go back home and move my family, you go out there and explore life and do your thing. Obviously, I'm not naive enough to know or to not believe that there was more to it. I'm sure all the cancellations also added to the extra fear and kind of tendency to run away from the industry, LA, and kind of move away to LA and move away to flipping New Jersey and because of his family. I'm sure there's a lot of self-preservation involved there also. When Crystalia, Bryan, Callen, all these guys were getting cancelled, even when the Louis C.K. shit happened, it kind of shone a really stark light on the comedy scene, and all these male comics started to feel really nervous because they've all got crazy skeletons in their closet because of the times they've been on the road, and they've cheated a million times, and they've maybe fucked up and did a couple of dilly-dalliance with people that they shouldn't have. Maybe they've done some rapey stuff, maybe they've done some pedo stuff, whatever it may be. It made everybody in the scene nervous, clearly. And I think at the time when that Amy Kaufman girl who wrote the op-ed or the opening piece on destroying fucking Joey Diaz, right? And essentially, she was kind of putting the fear of God in everybody in that scene. And I remember there was a period of time, if you remember your law, just after Bryan Callen got cancelled, there was a period in time where there was a rumor going around that Amy Kaufman girl was allegedly going around to different comics, going to different clubs and stuff, and getting real accounts on these horrifying stories about comedians and what they maybe have done with women and shit. And allegedly that was a story that was coming out, and I think Joey even spoke about it in his podcast, and everyone was getting nervous because it was meant to be a big op-ed that was gonna, or article or whatever, piece that was gonna trash everybody and expose what goes on in the kind of dark, underbelly of the fucking scene. And I think everyone got nervous, which is why, what's his face? I think that's why Eddie Bravo kind of ran away, like, because he has a real business and a real life and shit. He couldn't risk getting cancelled for that and whatever. So a lot of those guys ran away for that. So it's not surprising. But a part of me feels like this is definitely one of those things that should be heralded, because there isn't enough people in comedy and entertainment who are willing to just step away from the limelight again, because he's still going to be doing content, he's still going to be out here doing bits and bobs. He's not going to return to a life of being a private citizen, but it should be somewhat commendable and somewhat praised if you decide to just step back. It should be a little bit like, hey, I've had my fun, it was good where it lasted, I'm going to step back. Because constantly enjoying the sound of, like, I'm a nobody and I get tired of the sound of my own voice, right? My own voice legitimately tires me sometimes. So I can't imagine what it must be like for guys and girls on this level. How they must feel, where they're constantly making content, constantly talking, constantly giving hot takes, constantly sharing their opinion, constantly weighing in, constantly. It's just too much at a certain point. Like, just enough already. Enough. Relax. That's what I think should be happening, but they don't do that. So I think it needs to be given some encouragement. So big up Joey Diaz for at least stepping away from the microphone a little bit, and being one of the only people in that kind of scene or community of Joe Rogan extended universe type of dudes who decide to do so. I think that is somewhat commendable in that respect. I'm not gonna lie. Moving on from this, quickly want to mention this. Where is it? Oh, did I not post it? I'm not got on here. Okay, cool. Maybe it's on here. Let me see if I can find it. Bear with me 1 second though. I quickly wanted to mention this, right? Because I feel like this is an interesting post to kind of talk about in general. Because I don't mind it, but I think somebody on the Fire and the Kids subreddit made a really good point that really made me kind of rethink it a little bit. And let me see if I can get up on it. Bear with me a second. So it's this post here. And this post is courtesy of Brendan Schaub's wife, right? And I don't know if I'm going to get taken down on YouTube for showing this. Hopefully I don't. But this is the post, right? And it made me think, because I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I don't think it's that big of a problem. Which is a picture of Brendan Schaub's wife in a very scantily clad underwear, lingerie type of situation on her Instagram page. And the caption is it me, or has May been 2 months too long? Is it me, or has May been 2 months long? Summer is my least favorite time of the year and it's coming in hot, right? And she decides to post this, right? She's coming in hot, the sun's coming in hot. She's got the fucking redacted, like, girl little tongue and the teeth thing, right? The little kind of bonked head thing going on, which I do agree with. I think the girls on Red Scare had this kind of hot take that guys do love girls who are a little bit bonked, who kind of look a little bit redacted. Like, I think the example was the example they used, I think, was Sydney Sweeney. She's got a little bit like a like a redacted type of look to her, and I think guys kind of enjoy that kind of comatose, not really there, bit ditzy kind of appeal. So maybe that's what she's going for. But I found that post interesting, right? Because somebody made a point on the Fire and the Kids subreddit that Brendan Schaub's wife isn't like a celebrity in her own regard. She doesn't like do anything. She's not like a model. She's not like an influencer really in that regard, in any regard at all. She's just basically like a private citizen in a way. That's essentially married to somebody notable. So, but she's also a mum of 2. So it's not really common, or it's a bit weird that a mum of 2 that isn't involved in anything to do with the entertainment industry and is just, in it involved in a way because of their partner is also cool with posting pictures like this of themselves on Instagram. But then I think to myself, like, this woman, Brendan Schaub's wife, I don't think she's not that much of a thought leader or a unique person in that regard. So I'm sure she's copying it from other people. I'm sure there are other women who are married to notable people in the industry, entertainment figures, or just really regular ladies, but also happen to be attractive conventionally, who also do that. I'm sure that's the thing they do as a way of like, hey, I'm a mum, but I do it all. I cook, I clean, I look after my kids, but I could also get sexy if need be. I think that must be a thing that happens with women, especially in the LA scene and shit, because it must be a weird thing to kind of have to process and deal with in real time, right? Imagine you've always grown up being hot, and that's something that you've used as a thing to kind of propel your career, as part of your identity, and it's just been a part of you. You've always been hot. And then you suddenly become an adult, or you get into a relationship and you have some kids, but then your career takes a back seat to support the kids, to support your husband or partner. And now suddenly the being hot thing doesn't really matter because no one's looking at you anymore because you're not doing any content, but you're still hot and you want to just remind people that you're hot. So you keep, you do what she's doing. So technically there's nothing really wrong with it. I don't think so. But there is something strange about somebody that's technically a private citizen who's just happens to be married to a famous comedian and podcaster, is okay, and also a mother of two, is okay with just plushing themselves like this on social media. And it's interesting because also I would imagine for kids growing up, this is an interesting generation. I spoke about it beforehand about the OnlyFans generation. Like, I wonder what that's going to be like, because there was a part when I was growing up, the raciest things your parents could have done was maybe have a nude, was maybe have a sex tape, right? That was a thing that people did a lot. But nowadays, I don't think sex tapes are that big of a deal. Nowadays, I don't think people's dick pics getting leaked are that big of a deal. Nudes getting leaked it's not that big of a deal anymore. But I would imagine in some cases, your mum being splaying herself on her social media in very seductive, suggestive underwear, whatever it may be, that's going to be a bit of an issue. Or maybe your mum performing crazy sex acts on fucking OnlyFans is going to be a bit of an issue for people. So I wonder what those kids are going to deal with. I wonder if it's going to be not big of an issue like it was for our generation in terms of like not caring about sex tapes or like dick pics too much, or if it'll be different because it's on Instagram and it's on fucking OnlyFans. I'm interested to see, because I feel like this sort of shit is a bit much. If you're just a mum of two, chilling, doing your thing, to have pictures like that of yourself on social media is a bit crazy. Especially when you look at the feed. When you look at the feed, you see the family pics and then you see that. It's like, what are we doing here? But I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into it too much. Maybe it's not big of an issue. Who knows? But that is super, super interesting, because it kind of feels like, it's the sort of stuff that you'd see somebody that is maybe technically single would do. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's a thing, maybe it isn't. I don't really know. Personally, I wouldn't have an issue with that. If that was me and that was my partner, I really wouldn't care. It really wouldn't bother me. But somebody in front of the kids, somebody just did make a good point. Like, hold on, she's like a private citizen. She's got kids at home. She's just married to a comedian. She doesn't do any content online. She's not an influencer. She's not a model. She's just like a mum. Like, technically basic, why is she doing this? I was like, yeah, true. Why is she doing this? I don't know. Maybe she just enjoys how her body looks on camera. That could also be a thing. Anyway, moving on. This clip courtesy, or this picture post courtesy of the Comedy Mothership. I'm going to get to a point, right? This is a post taken from the Comedy Mothership where the caption is just legends and future legends all in one night, right? I feel like the person that manages the Comedy Mothership social media account is always quietly, slowly, in a really subtle way, trolling fucking Brendan Schaub. I know this is kind of like main character energy type of vibes I'm giving here, but I've got a feeling the person who manages the Comedy Mothership, Joe Rogan's comedy club out there in Austin, Texas, whoever manages this account is trolling and basically taking the piss out of Brendan in a very subtle, not so subtle way. I feel like that's some ways, because this caption is so unnecessary. Just legends and future legends all in one photo. So essentially, if you're not part of this group of guys, you do not matter, right? You simply don't matter. Like, and Brendan Shaw being a close friend of Joe Rogan's and clearly somebody begging and pleading and hoping to get back into their good graces and be invited there. The fact that he's not involved in this, you know, collage of killers and 1,000 only comedians, it must fucking brutalize the guy. But I'm starting to get to a point, and I mentioned this before, being a, you know, bona fide contrarian, I'm starting to get to a point where I might start defending Brendan Schaub on this, you know. I might start being the guy that starts defending Brendan Schaub. I swear to God. Because there's a part of me that feels like if you're Brendan, you kind of feel like you're owed an appearance on there. Right? Joe's for the longest time been backing you up. He introduced you to comedy. He pretended to be your best friend, your mentor, your guru, your North Star. Then he suddenly moves away to fucking Texas, forgets your number, acts completely different with you. Then suddenly he realizes that you're not funny and that you might be a douchebag suddenly. And now when he opens his own club and it's the best club in the world that everyone's fucking coming over, you don't invite him there. If I'm Brendan, I'm going to be so pissed. And I'm going to have a sense of entitlement. I'm going to feel like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care how bad you think Gringo Pappy is. I don't care how bad you think You'd Be Surprised is. You owe me. You owe me. You owe me an invitation. Part of me feels like that. I'm get to a point where I feel like I need to start defending Brendan because this is out of hand. He still hasn't been invited. Do you know how hilarious that is? Do you know how hilarious that is that he hasn't been invited? Do you know how funny that is? All this time, the most famous club in the world with one of his best friends, a guy that propelled his career, had him as one of the most, you know, recurring guests on Joe Rogan. To this point, he's still the most recurring. His guest appearances are on like the high 80s or 90s, which is insane. So you think about it, considering how many episodes Rogan does, considering the fact that he doesn't really double back on people too often, the fact that you have over 80 episodes with Rogan is nuts, especially if you consider Brendan isn't that interesting of a dude. He's not that smart, not that funny. What did they have to talk about? Clearly they liked each other. Clearly it was a real friendship. Clearly he was helping out somebody he thought was a friend, and he got to a point where he wasn't even helping out. He just liked hanging out with him. Then all of a sudden, something clicks in Rogan's head. He realizes all the memes are true. He watches a couple porcelain videos or whatever, and then suddenly he realizes, oh, this guy is a bit of a douche. This guy is a little bit unfunny. He probably is bad for business. And he just fucking pushes him away. I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel bad for Brendan, I'm not gonna lie. And I feel like this comedy mothership account is always taking little jabs at him with the caption and shit in the pictures. Because if I'm Brendan, if there's a possibility to unlike this picture, I'm unliking it. If unliking means clicking this picture 3 times, I'm clicking it 3 times because I'm pissed off, man. Got Dice Clay there, Rogan doing that fucking face, that physical comedy. You know Rogan's talking about fucking apes or something, or hanging off of a boat, or fucking somebody raw somewhere. I don't know, some sort of joke like that. Rah, Rogan's got Johnny Depp teeth as well, innit? Rah, Ted boy. You got Rogan there. You got Shane Gillis looking like a stud. You got, what's her name again? Roseanne. Mark Norman there. Tony Hinchcliffe. Brian Simpson. I don't know who that lady is. What's her name? Kerrigan, that's the lady that used to do the podcast with Joey Diaz. They actually did the podcast together. That's how it started, actually. They used to do the show together, and Joey Diaz went and did his own thing. And the other guy that used to write for Brendan Schaub, actually, right? Eshan Jamad. What would Brendan Schaub's career look like if he would have kept this guy around? Eshan Jamad and the other dude. The other dude that looks horrendous when he takes his hat off. Like, what would the Brendan Schaub's career be like if he actually decided to, you know what, I'm going to be one of these comedians who just like has premises, but then has people like punch up my jokes or just write them for me. I might have a premise or something, but they write the whole entire thing and I just deliver it on stage. Imagine where Brendan would be if he had legit writers. I still don't think he'd be that funny, personally. I think it would be like a quiet taste. Like, I still feel like Brendan's best comedy set ever, in my opinion. Have you guys seen it? His best comedy set ever, I think, is this. Let's see if you guys know. It's not the Mexican cookie joke. Salsa on a hot chocolate chip cookie. That guy's a fucking psychopath. Using that as a joke, it's not that. The best ever Brendan Schaub comedy bit for me is this. Let's see if I can find it. This is not happening. Yeah, there we go. So I think if Brendan had fans, so Brendan had writers, his content would sound like this. In my opinion, it would sound like this. It would be like stories that you'd have to kind of, that kind of like long story type joke of bit that Bert Kreischer does. It would be like this type of stuff, personally. So you'd have to like this type of comedy, but it wouldn't be like snappy one-liners. He still wouldn't be that funny. It would be like the story time shit. So if you don't care about stories, you wouldn't care. Let's fast forward a bit. Let's see if it plays. Come on, bro. Play. Ladies and
gentlemen,
there you go.
And on the screen pops up the very first UFC fight in 1993. It's Royce Gracie versus Ken Shamrock. So you got a Brazilian guy in a gi versus this.
I'm realizing how out of breath he is only by watching this again. Why is he so out of breath? Why is he breathing so heavily into the microphone? I know I sometimes do it, don't get me wrong, but I got some settings on my OBS that make sure that it doesn't pick up on all the but why is he breathing so heavily?
The very first UFC fight in 1993. It's Royce Gracie versus Ken Shamrock. So you got a Brazilian guy in a gi versus this giant, probably on steroids, hot dog skin looking character.
You know what that's funny? You know how he got instant laughs here and the actual crowd? It wasn't a laugh track. Because if I remember correctly, Bert Kreischer helped him tighten up this story and probably other people. But I remember the main part of this was like Bert Kreischer. That's when him and Bert Kreischer were close and he used to call him his North Star and friend, whatever. I'm sure Bert Kreischer isn't as close to him now anymore. But Bert actually helped tighten up that story for him. So I'm not too sure why he didn't stick to using Bert more, because Bert's style of comedy is story time shit. But maybe if he would have stuck to this type of comedy, he maybe would have been funnier. And he would have stuck with that Eshan Jamad guy. This might have been funnier in that regard. Maybe.
And that was a straight up human cockfight. Like, he might as well put on his favorite porno scene. Like, it fucked the whole vibe up of the party. Like, it's over. My grandma was like, what in the devil? Dropped her meatball. My mom was like, oh my God. And my brother and I.
His delivery dropped the fucking hell, Brendan. His delivery. He dropped her meatball. And oh, this guy's winning, man. He's a millionaire, you know. The guy's a millionaire. Remember that. A millionaire.
We were mesmerized, not by the fight on the screen, but with my dad. And he was so passionate. And he looked at these guys like they were his heroes. And a light bulb went on.
Heroes. I love this imagined history in life that he has going on. We all know his dad wanted him to be a footballer. His dad pushed him to be a footballer. He wanted to be a footballer. It didn't work out. And then he pivoted into UFC. But this whole imagined fucking origin story he has of always wanting to be a UFC champion is so unnecessary. Like, why lie? It's so weird.
I want my dad to look at me the way he looks at these guys on the screen. This is exactly what I'm going to do. It was the first time in my life I ever realized that. So I became obsessed with mixed martial art.
Okay, it's finally coming calmer now. He's having some gaps and pauses and letting some uncomfortable breaks happen and shit and gathering himself. That's what he should have done on Green Up Happy. He was rushing through that. Crazy. He should be at this calm level. But maybe because he knows the material's good. He knows there's some good hits coming. Good bits. So he's kind of gearing up to it. You know, guiding the audience through. This is what he should be doing. But again, he should have had writers.
It's all I thought about. I'd practice, I'd mimic the moves with my brother in the living room nonstop, and I'd vision myself grabbing the mic from Joe Rogan. I have the belt around my waist. My dad's in cage side. I'm like, Dad, we did it. Remember that time you fucked up that family reunion? Look at us now, though. And Jay, all those times in the living room. I know it sucked, but what's up, man? We did it. Fast forward 20 years later, I'm pursuing this exact dream in the UFC. I have a handful of fights under my belt, and things are good. I'm ranked top 10 in the world. I'm chilling. I'm at home. My phone rings. I don't recognize the number. It's a Las Vegas area code.
Anyway, I don't give a fuck. It's taking too long. But yeah, you get the point. You get the point what I was talking about. Let's move on. Las Vegas area code. My guy. Anyway, moving on from that one. This post is courtesy of the Joe Rogan subreddit, and it's a constant conversation going on at the moment. What do you guys think? What do you guys think is Joe Rogan's issue with comedians coming on his podcast and being funny and making jokes and being silly? Why does Joe Rogan seem to hate it so much? Can somebody describe? Because I felt like this recent episode of Save Our Parks might have been one of the best ones in terms of the number of zingers and one-liners that Mark Norman was dropping in the background, Shane Gillis giggling, Ari Shaffir dropping his occasional one-liner and shit. But it was all going over Joe Rogan's head. He was not having it in the slightest. And this is a good example of it. And he does this thing also, somebody pointed out, where whenever Mark Norman says a joke and he doesn't get it, he'll do this like wah shit, like, you know, he kind of ironically laughing. But people are now seeing it maybe as like a weird, him being jealous and feeling inadequate around Mark. I don't really know. But let's play the clip anyway.
He literally killed Pepsi Spice. When was the last time you saw Pepsi Spice?
It's done.
I've never heard of it.
He probably killed it.
They're like, just
Damn.
Forget this loser.
It was kind of weird though, wasn't it?
It was like cinnamon.
What is? I don't know. Pepsi
Was it good?
Spice.
It might have been good. He might have fucked it up for everybody.
Like
Cherry
like
Coke.
joyous way from
Cherry
the world.
Coke is really good.
Cherry
Cherry
Coke's
Coke's
good.
the best.
Cherry Coke
Pepsi
is
Spice,
delicious.
worst Spice Girl.
Cherry Coke Spice.
Pepsi Spice.
She's bubbly. She's got great cans.
Stop it.
See, so he did that wah thing, but then whenever I started laughing, he joined in. So what you think is the issue with Joe Rogan just not liking when people make jokes on his pod? What do you think that's about? I don't buy into this narrative that everyone's doing on the Joe Rogan subreddit by saying that, oh, Joe is jealous of Mark Norman. I don't buy that in the slightest. I also think, having listened to enough Joe Rogans, he does have this tendency where he kind of doesn't really match the vibe of the room. So if he's talking to some neurophysicist, he's suddenly silly goosey and talking about crazy shit that he probably shouldn't be talking about with somebody in that field. But then when he's got a comedian on, he kind of doesn't want to be silly. So he does it like, you know what I mean? So the opposite sort of thing. So, and he kind of wants to talk about serious issues and culture war stuff and cancel culture and politics and blah, blah, blah. You know, economy, all this nonsense. Like, I don't really know why that's the case, but it is interesting to see why that happens and how it happens so often. Here's another clip, courtesy of that in same episode where they have a very interesting interaction. Everybody on Save Our Parks.
Jay, a big video gamer?
He's just competitive. He's competitive.
Yeah. Oh, he gets crazy?
Yeah, I try
Rarely, but when he is.
What game are you playing?
NBA Jam.
More basketball.
Yeah.
He plays
He plays
basketball
NBA
video
2K.
games.
He loves basketball.
Yeah.
So that was what started the argument. Is he was like, "I'm getting pretty good." And I
Does
was
he
like,
actually play basketball?
Yeah,
Yeah, he does.
They were playing.
They have a court in his
that was in
apartment.
his. That was in his apartment building.
Oh, okay.
He's
He's a
competitive.
weekly game.
Yeah.
I wore a chain wallet once. He tackled me.
Why?
That's his thing.
He wears a chain wallet.
That's a joke.
His fucking.
I wore a chain wallet once and he tackled me. That was clearly a joke because Big J wears chain wallets and looks like a fucking, you know, a goth from the fucking early 2000s, right? An emo. Like, it's ridiculous, right? His age. Like a mole goth, but it's funny, right? And Joe, why would he do that? Why would he tackle you for? That's mean. Why would he do that? It's a joke. Oh. So what's the deal with that? Again, I don't buy into this idea that he's jealous of Mark Norman. I don't buy that. Because I also think this is one of the rare instances on Joe Rogan's podcast where he gets to talk to people who don't mind shitting on him, who don't mind teasing him, who don't mind making him the butt of the jokes. He actually enjoys this, especially being a filthy rich white man. He probably gets loads of people, you know, sucking up to him and wanting to cozy up to him and be his friend and whatnot, and never really talk quote unquote normal to him. This is the one occasion he does get to do it on his pod where no one's trying to suck up to him really that aggressively, and they're having a laugh, joking and making, you know, inside jokes on, you know, without him being involved in any way, shape or form. So I think he kind of enjoys that. So there's no way that he does it because he doesn't like them. He just does this all the time with comedians. Every comedian's complained about this, like his tendency to just not get jokes. Some people have suggested that's because he's not funny himself. That's a common thing I've heard. He's not funny. He's not funny. That's why he doesn't get jokes. He's not actually a good comedian himself. He's a better podcaster, blah, 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 blah. Again, I don't buy that. I just think for whatever reason, when comedians come on, Joe's brain switches to like serious mode. Like he just doesn't, he wants to be the one leading the jokes. Like I'm the alpha here. When it comes to, you know, psychologists and philosophers and businessmen and shit, it switches to that, to being silly goosey guy. So what do you guys think here in the stream chat? Joe's probably just got a lot on his mind. It's just him and Jamie apparently. Yeah, true. Louis BJ said I'd love to see what Joe thinks of GL of milk cost. Martin Moose says not jealousy. It's Joe. It's witty enough to make a funny comeback. It's all Joe can do. Literally can't joke back and forth. Okay, that's true. I think Martin Moose is onto something. Martin Moose, you might be right there. I think Joe Rogan's inability to like riff is true, because he can be funny. He's clearly a funny dude and can be funny on podcasts. We know that, but he's not like he's not sharp and he can't go back and forth like that. I think his default when he kind of wants to take part in those kind of back and forths and witty, whatever it may be, exchanges, he usually just laughs a lot. He very rarely says anything else to kind of add to the joke. He just laughs really enthusiastically, that kind of like belly laugh, like leaning back. He doesn't necessarily take part in any other way apart from that. So I think you're right there, Marty Moose. You might have cracked it. Louis BJ says Joe's untethered from real reality, that these pop eps are supposed to be chill pods similar to the Fight Companions. Okay, that's maybe a point there. Mr. West says he doesn't get video game trash talking. True. Cloud K2 says I wonder if Joe's naturally funny and he retracts around other comedians who naturally just like to joke around silly. That's another good one. Cloud K20. I wonder if Joe just is not naturally funny and he retracts. That's true. That's similar to Brendan. Brendan does that also. Whenever he's around like super funny people, like you remember it a lot when it was like the old golden days of the T-Fat-K podcast, when Will Sasser would join and Chris Lear would be there and Bryan Callen would be there, and those three will be hitting it off because they're like 10-minute podcast guys, right? Fame, and they've known each other for a while. And Brendan would just kind of like go into his shell. He wouldn't know what to say. He'd just be laughing nervously along. So when he's around other comedians, instead of rising to it and kind of getting involved with the funnies, he'd kind of go into his shell a bit more. So that might be a good point. Good point you made there, Cloud K20. Robert Henry Poet says, I think he does act like a jealous dude occasionally. Money make that shit go ahead automatically. I've been around dudes with money and they can just be insecure sometimes. Yeah, that's also true. Maybe it's also true. Like maybe he's around people that always suck his dick when he's got money. So when he's around people that don't really care that much about him like that, it can maybe make him feel a little bit away, and he kind of wants to reassert dominance by, hey, I'm serious now, no jokes. Maybe that's a good point as well there. Natashki says the fact that Joe claims to be so health conscious and looks like he's like a toe decaying at rapid speed is insane to me. Why do people keep talking about this? Natashki with the bombs. You know what about Joe's appearance? You know the funny thing about Joe's appearance? Maybe it's me, but I think he's aged like an avocado. He looked okay for a while, and then he just started to look wild. Like I think there reaches a point. There's a point of like, what's that word called again? There's a point of diminishing returns, I think, with HGH and steroids in general. You get to a certain age, because I'm sure Joe works out the same way he worked out when he was 21. But when you take so much gear and your natural biological age is going a certain way, it just hits a wall. There's nothing more you can do. That guy going viral on social media at the moment, the guy that's kind of injecting himself with his son's blood and shit, right? He's a good example. I think you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Let me actually try and get him up on here. People, how they look like. Let me see if I can pull him up. Boom, 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 boom. Bear with me. Man injects son's blood. You know what I'm talking about, right? This guy, he's going viral on social media, but I've known about him from the startup world because he does a lot of like biohacking type of shit, right? This white dude, right? Here on the right, obviously the one on the front. He's obviously doing this whole thing where he's trying to crack, longevity and whatnot, and trying to make sure that he, stays in optimal physical shape and whatnot for as long as possible. Because that's one thing people always say. If you're around rich people, they say like, you should always talk about what's that thing called, immortality and shit around those kind of topics. Rich people love that, the idea of kind of extending their life in any way, shape or form. They're always going to be ready to kind of chat about those things more so than talking about industry entertainment bullshit. Anyway, long story short to say, this guy I think is proof that there's only so much you can do. He's probably on all sorts of stuff. He clearly works out a bunch. From what I remember, his daily eating habit, diet-wise, is fucking boring as hell. He really is committed to eating super clean. He works out a bunch, takes care of himself, sleeps 8 hours a day with fucking, heavy shades and shit. Does everything. But there's only so much you can do to not avoid looking just like an older dude that's really fit. There's nothing else you can do about that. He just looks like a really fit older dude. He's never going to look like his son, right? He's always going to go that way to end up looking like his dad in this picture does. It's just one of those type of things that happens. And I think with Joe Rogan, he's reached that stage quicker because I'd imagine, again, I don't know much about steroids and shit, but I'd imagine steroids at a certain point do like hurt you age-wise. They do kind of speed up your aging, I'd imagine. I think it's similar to like, I look at steroids similar to like using hair dye. Sometimes you use hair dye a lot, it actually speeds up the amount of grays you get over time, right? It makes you actually get more grays than ever before. So I think that actually can happen. So I think in Joe Rogan's case, he just, has reached the ceiling. There's only so much of gear that you can do before your body just says enough. We're going to look how we're going to look. You know what I mean? And the way he looks is the way he looks. So big up Natashki for that bomb. Joe Rogan is looking kind of wild at the moment, but it kind of is what it is. Because there was a moment where I didn't really notice how insane he looked, but then I suddenly woke up and looked at, fuck, he looks like a fucking Savaloy, doesn't he? Like, he looks fucking insane. But big up Joe Rogan. Big up Joe Rogan, man. But yeah, and I love this meme also to end it. This meme is fucking, whoever put this on the Joe Rogan subreddit, you are a fucking legend. This meme is fucking amazing. It's showing Neo from the Matrix. Mark's jokes, Ari's jokes, Joe, Shane's jokes are fucking incredible. Honestly, so good, man. Like, he fucking hates it. When this comedian, he hates it. When this fucking philosophers, psychologists, he's all over it, but whatever. Big up fucking the Joe Rogan sub. It's finally coming to terms of maybe Joe Rogan's changing and not the person that they fell in love with. Boo ho ho. Let's move on from that one. And let's talk about... let's talk about some things I haven't spoken about here. Let's talk about quickly this clip here taken from Bryan Callen talking about being a dad. Bryan Callen's thoughts on being a padre. Very interesting thoughts indeed.
I had my son,
my
11-year-old, and my 16-month-old together.
Oh,
and they
cool.
were playing together. When I see that, all is right in the world.
Bro, you're doing great, bro. You're doing great. You've reproduced more. So you've put one more than your ex-wife and your current wife.
I just want to say, can I just make a point and just say this quickly? Maybe I don't know what's going on here, but am I the only person that was a little bit surprised that this happened so quickly with Bryan Callen? Like, the whole breaking up of his first wife thing, I thought was a bit strange. Especially how they tried to frame it. Like she was holding him back or something, right? I think Brendan said that, oh yeah, now you're looking better, you're acting better, you seem like you got a weight off your shoulders and shit. It was just weird. Like she was holding him back in his career. I was like, what? Okay, whatever. We don't know what they're going through. Cool, that might be a thing. And then he soon after leaving that wife, he then hooks up with somebody and he's in a committed relationship where they're like engaged and shit, married, and then they got a baby. Like, I was like, God almighty, man. Like, for somebody that was allegedly trapped by having a family and wanting to be like a playboy and do your thing, to suddenly run away to somebody else and then have a family, it just seemed a bit bizarre to me. But looking back at it now, it's just standard LA Hollywood shit, in it, really.
Then your ex-wife and your current wife plus one.
What the fuck are you talking about?
So that doesn't make sense.
And that's what you got to do,
That's
bro.
right. 2 families. And if I could just
So you have
teach-
3 kids.
Yeah, if I could.
And you want a 4th kid.
My daughter has no time for me. I love her, but she's 15. She's like, I got a boyfriend, I got friends.
Yeah, and daddy also might be a rapist. You know, that might also be a part.
Like, hey, how you doing? You know, can I see you? She's like, yeah, whatever. And I will not see her.
You having fun though?
I will not see her. She's too busy. My son, though, is 11. I still got him. And I got my 16-month. If I could play with my 16-month-old and I could teach my son things like martial arts,
Come on, man.
boxing.
What are you going to do? Use some of that boxing you've been doing?
I fucking love Will Sasso, man. Will Sasso is one of the biggest losses to ever happen to the T-Fight-K universe. Him, Prime, Crystalia, Thea Vaughn, obviously. But honestly, Will Sasso, that era was fucking incredible, boy. And this is obviously one of the only pods also where Brendan actually played second, third fiddle really well. He actually let these 2 guys riff and vibe, and he was just lobbing up shit. Like, he actually, you know, not wanting to be the center of attention all the time. Like, even the seating, look, he's not sat in the middle like he always is, like a fucking commander of the fucking Navy. Like, he was legitimately like allowing the more funnier guys in the room to have their thing, and he was just adding a bit here and there. This is probably his most well behaved.
Don't you fucking disrespect.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu.
I love it.
If I could just hang with him and explore different kinds of music.
We're not here to start no trouble. We're legally required to do the sex offender show.
Oh, I love it, man. Rape me. But yeah, sex offender show for rape me at the end. Absolutely epic stuff. And then moving on from that one, we got Andrew Dice Clay making explaining what he liked about Joe Rogan's comedy the first time he saw him, but I don't think he's realizing that it doesn't come across great. Andrew Dice Clay is fucking amazing, man. Listen to him speak about the first time he saw Joe Rogan do stand-up comedy. It's not the most glowing endorsement. I don't think so, anyway. Oh, sorry, it's got.
And it's you, full force. I mean, screaming at the crowd. And what made it even better, number one, you were doing time, and you were just going ballistic. I thought you were going to start breaking the stool. I mean, you were also just, and
you were just screaming, fucking the stool to bits. That's not the best endorsement. That's not the best way to describe somebody, but it is quite accurate, right? He just saw Rogan screaming at the audience and fucking the store to bits until it was a pile of fucking pieces of wood on the stage. Oh, fucking hell, man. Incredible. I love Andrew Dice. Dice Man's fucking amazing. Some people didn't like the fucking episode because they felt like he was sucking up to Rogan too much. The energy was a bit off, but I did enjoy that, to be fair. Also, I feel like there needs to be actually, let me say this. Yeah, there needs to be an end. I feel like comedians need to chill out with the crowd work material clips. Like, enough is enough. No more, please. Because I feel like this clip, specifically from Crystalia, doesn't need to exist. Obviously, because of him being a potential pedo, we don't want to see it anyway. But just in terms of why does this exist? Why do you need to share this? I don't get it. It doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form. No one cares about the backstory. No one cares about the interaction. It was funny when you were there. Crowd work stuff just needs to end. Like, already, I feel like it's a disservice to fans when you do crowd work anyway. As a stand-up comedian, you should be putting bits together like fucking write some jokes for fuck's sake. Like, come on, just asking people where they're from and riffing on where they're from and if they're gay and if they're not. Has she got big boobs? This guy's black. This guy's Chinese. Like, that's so hacky to me personally. Like, come on, like actually craft some jokes, like write some stuff. Like, that's the hard bit. So I feel like crowd work is lazy and annoying. But even if you do it, I feel like it's only funny in the moment. It's like retelling a fucking dream. You know what I mean? No one fucking cares. It's not interesting. Like, it's only funny if you're fucking dreaming it yourself. So I feel like crowd work just needs to end, personally. Me no fan of crowd work. But anyway, this is Crystalia crowd work, which I feel like shouldn't exist.
Calm down. Only just laugh and don't laugh. That's it. Just laugh and don't laugh. You don't have to do the dancing like the fucking asshole that you were doing. You remember in the beginning? I was up here and she was like doing it like this, like it's her show. You're like, ooh, we gotta go. This is not good.
One thing I've noticed though about Crystalia's stand-up comedy, from the clips I've seen so far, he definitely looks a little bit apprehensive on stage, and he definitely doesn't look as confident. And also, that whole kiddie voice is gone. Is it only me? I feel like he had a very like good gaga type of voice whenever he was on stage. It was really strange. Like, he spoke like a teenager or something. But even like, you know what I mean? Like, back then he spoke like really, like he had this weird affliction, I don't know, inflection, whatever in his voice. It's definitely changed. He's definitely not sounding as kiddish anymore, but still, he looks like a shell of the man, clearly on stage. Like, you know, that's the face of a man that's been through some shit. That's also a face of a man that may drink a bit or may pop a couple of pills, you know, allegedly. But yeah, let's continue.
Just laugh or don't laugh. Cause you know what happens? He'll throw you out. And he does it like this from the feet. So just chill. I appreciate you liking me, but you're liking me in the wrong way, okay?
And also, you're not a child, so, you know, stop.
You want me to get her now? Here we go. Fucking. Oh no, the cops are here. Oh no, fuck, she has to go. Oh well, let's just wait it out. I feel bad, but in a way, you made your bed, you know?
Yeah. I think it needs to be a ban on all crowd work on social media sharing as clips, because I don't know, maybe it's me. If I'm a fan, I'm not coming to watch you perform on stage because of some crowd work bit you did. I'm coming on there because I think you're funny on pods. I've watched your specials and shit. That's why I'm coming. But I'm not coming to see you because of shitty crowd work bits. I'm not. And I just think in general, it doesn't do him any favors, because this is just terrible, personally, for me. Like, this was probably funny in a moment because I'm sure the woman, whoever it was doing some crazy shit. You probably saw her doing some crazy shit. That made you laugh. Crystalia saw it too. He recognized it. The security coming, people fucking around and panicking. That's the funny bit in the moment. But this recording of the stuff it's just like, enough, man, enough. I've had enough with crowd work bits on social media. All comedians must end crowd work bits. Please stop. But also, cancel culture maybe does work a tiny bit. Because Crystalia looks like a fucking shadow of his former self. That guy looks bloated. He looks tired. He looks like he's aged a million years. The hairline keeps going further and further back. Yeah, it's not looking good for the boy. It's not looking good for the boy who maybe is a fan of little girls, allegedly. But hey, what do I know? What do I know? Moving on from that, we've got a clip here that I also have, talking about Rogan, talking about again, this is something that this is my only hot take I have here, and I'm on my own here. But am I the only person who feels like when Rogan shares these little anecdotes or stories about his life and speaks about people without mentioning their names, am I the only person who feels like if I felt like it was me he was speaking to, I'll be a little bit offended and a little bit pissed off that he doesn't have the decency to just tell me to my face or be upfront, and he does this whole like speaking through his podcast thing because he knows his podcast is the most popular podcast in the world and everyone's listening to it. If he is speaking about you, more likely you're gonna hear about it. Somebody's gonna let you know. I just don't really like it. I think it's a little bit done in poor taste, a little bit classless. Maybe it's just me, I'm looking too much into it. But this is a clip where Rogan talks about his alleged quote-unquote sloppied friend. Now, this could be Bert Kreischer. It could also be Brendan Schaub. But it's somehow him, you know, in a weird way mentioning it without mentioning it. So this is the clip here. Let me see if I can play it for you guys.
Feeling great.
Sober.
You know, sober.
Sober
Not
boss.
drinking. How crazy is that?
How long have you been sober for?
Oh, you know, I do drink here and there, like a glass of wine or something.
Sorry, before we get to the most important part, Bas Rutten is the most in the most LA version of sober I've ever heard in my entire life. LA new age version of sober. You celebrate the sober tag and you use it as a badge of honor. The fact that you've taken the decision to abstain from drugs and alcohol because it's been destructive to your life and you want to live a most, you know, whatever, conscious life, sober life, wherever it may be. It takes a lot of courage to do that. A lot of kind of, you know, a lot of willpower, a lot of determination, a lot of self-discipline, prayer, whatever it may be. You do that. You see the benefits of it and you're sticking with it. It's hard, but you're sticking with it. And then you say, no. I'm not that sober. I'm actually, I still have a drink of wine here and there, you know. We'll drink a glass of wine with some dinner with the wife. How can I say no? I just love that side of things where in this era we want all the praise for doing the thing but don't actually do the thing. Love it.
Something, but yeah, for a while, I think for the last 5 years.
I'm taking it down to that myself. I enjoy the marijuana and I enjoy some other stuff that's safe and effective. But I am pretty much done with heavy drinking. I had a friend recently that got off the rails drunk. And it was so sad to watch. He was so debilitated that I was like, I think I might be done.
Yeah.
It was awful. You see just real when you're sober and you see someone just shit-faced, obliterated, can't form sentences.
Yeah.
How would you feel if he was talking about you and he said that? Wouldn't that make you feel like shit? That Rogan is taking a somewhat private encounter that you had together and essentially using it as the basis of him changing his entire life and then broadcasting it to his audience of millions and painting you out to be a fucking alcoholic. Again, it could be anybody. It could be Bert Kreischer. Someone said Shane. It could be Brendan Schaub. I feel like Joe Rogan does this a lot. He sends messages to his friends through his podcast without actually telling them. And I don't know, part of me will feel a little bit annoyed about it. It's cool that I'm friends with Rogan. You call him as a friend. We can hang out, have drinks. That's the cool part. But as a human, I'd be a little bit annoyed that he uses me as a fucking anecdote or as a topic for his fucking pod or something. I don't know. It rubbed me up the wrong way, if that was me personally. But maybe I'm looking too much into it. People are saying Shane 100%. He could say it right to Papa if it go over his head. Yeah, true, Coyle. That's true. He probably, you know, I'm sure he's not the type of person that shies away from a confrontation, so I'm sure he would do it. Samantha B said Shane. Yeah, everybody's saying Shane. Cool. Okay, people are saying Shane all here, really, to be fair. No one's really saying Brendan, but it could be Brendan, it could be Bert. I just think if it was me and I was those people at the end of it, I would be a little bit aggrieved if that was me, personally. This is a fucking amazing clip. This is an amazing clip because this is what denial looks like. This is what delusion looks like in its real purest form. I swear on my life, this is delusion and in its purest form. And lack of self-awareness is purest form. Personally for me, you can't get any better than this. But I'm at a point now with this person where I feel like they're getting so much criticism for their lifestyle choices that I might have to be the contrarian that lives deep inside of me and latch onto the thing of like, hey, if they want to live their life this way, just let them. Who gives a fuck? They clearly like it. They clearly don't give a fuck. So why should you? That's where I'm getting at. But I feel like their answer here was incredibly lacking in self-awareness and very delusional. Personally, let's play it here.
And I started drinking with the Russian Mafia. That's when I really started drinking in life.
But you would not consider yourself a problematic drinker.
I'm definitely not.
Definitely not.
I'm definitely not.
You drink to have fun, but not drink because you're like, if I don't drink, I'm fuck. You don't consider yourself an alcoholic.
I'm 100% not an alcoholic.
What? But Crasher gets asked categorically, do you consider yourself an alcoholic? He says no. And you're like, excuse me? But we all do. Everybody else thinks you're alcoholic, but you don't. How is that possible? Especially when you consider that we don't see him drinking day to day, right? We're not in his life, and he probably tells us a sanitized, censored version of what he gets up to, because it got to a point now where I think he's probably fed up with everybody getting, sticking their nose in and trying to give him advice and what to do, that he probably refuses to share some bits, or does what most addicts do, myself included, where you maybe play down how much you did, how much you didn't do. And I'm sure he does that. So the fact that he's saying that as an answer is fucking insane. The fact that he did it so quickly also is a sign of how in denial he is. Let's do it again one more time.
Because you're like, if I don't drink, I'm fuck. You don't consider yourself an alcoholic.
I'm 100% not an alcoholic.
That's consider yourself an alcoholic.
I'm 100% not an alcoholic.
Consider yourself an alcoholic.
I'm 100% not an alcoholic.
That's awesome. Good.
That is crazy, especially when you look at him in this picture. Don't get me wrong, it's not the best representation, but he's wearing like a red jersey and a red hat, and his face is super red. And for the longest time, Bert would always say this is because of his rashes. He's got some sort of allergy thing, which I'm sure is true. He probably has some sort of eczema or psoriasis, I'm sure. But it's probably not helped with the drinking. I'm sure drinking the way he does isn't going to help things. Yeah, what's we just saying? Yeah, literally every alcoholic on earth has said that exactly. He's been going through hard for 30 years. Kevin Smith looks like if Jake the Snake got bit by his own snake. But I also think, in my eyes, I'm getting to the point now where I feel like people should just leave Bert alone. If he wants to be a raging alcoholic, why can't he be? That's the thing that I'm kind of in two minds of now. The contrarian that lives inside of me just wants to say, just let him do what he wants. If he wants to be an alcoholic, if he wants to fuck himself over, damage his liver, shorten his lifespan, look like a fucking exploding, Savaloy, and have that crazy stomach, leave him. He clearly doesn't mind it. I don't see why it's an issue for people that he should stop. I know it's obviously destructive, and maybe some people look at it like, hey man, you got everything in life given to you. You're now in this amazing, no, not given to you. Well, you worked hard for your career, and you got all these amazing, benefits from it. You've been able to be a multi-millionaire many times over because of your, jokes that you tell on stage. You've got the best life. Why are you taking it for granted? I get that side of things, but he clearly doesn't care that much. His family don't give a shit as that much either, because it's providing them with a cushy lifestyle. So I don't see the issue with it personally. I'm getting to a point where I'm kind of like, let him live. Exactly. Robert Henry Poet. If he dies, he dies. Like, just let him do his thing. I know it's bad to say, and it's clearly not the thing that you'd want to encourage, but he doesn't care. They don't care. He's having a good time, clearly, loving life. Like, and he clearly doesn't think he's an alcoholic. So what can we tell him? The guy's a grown man. He's in like his 50s or something. If he hasn't figured it out by now that he can't be like college frat boy his entire life, then he's never going to figure it out, really, in my opinion. But yeah, what do you guys think? The Machine hasn't even made 7 million on a 20 million budget, plus 20 million on marketing. His movie career is over and killed over other comedians' chances of getting him. Actually, good point, Marty Moose, talking about that movie. Oh, again, I like to always share very, 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 very unpopular opinions here. No, Robert Henry Poet says, but according to Zinga, he will outlive them all. I'm still dying on that hill, Robert Henry Poet. I don't care. This is my hot take of all hot takes. I've always said this. I still think Bert Kreischer will end up outliving all of his comedic peers. Life is just unfair like that. The guy that doesn't take any care about, doesn't look after his health, doesn't take care of his fitness or anything, or do anything concerning fitness that would be any way beneficial, is the person that usually outlives everybody else. Many of you people have had the same people in your family. The ones who smoke 20 packs of cigarettes a day, that drink all the time, and live fruitful lives until they're, in their high 80s or 90s, and die of natural causes. Not even fucking anything to do with, stuff to do with cancer or whatnot, alcoholism. It's just from natural causes. It happens all the time. And I have a funny feeling Bert Kreischer will be another example of it. Especially with these comedians who all think they're super healthy. Like Brendan thinks he's super healthy. Joe Rogan thinks he's super healthy. All these guys that take 1,000,001 supplements and steroids and nicotine pouches and drinking whiskey all the time and drinking around the clock and living on a comedian's diet of like fast food and dive bars and all this. Like, all those guys, I think they're healthy. They will end up, I think, hitting the can, RIPing, whatever it may be, way before Bert Kreischer will. Any way, shape or form. I don't care. I bet you any money. I bet you. Life is just unfair like that. Because everybody online is like kind of rooting for him to die so they can prove their kind of hypothesis right, that he's, an alcoholic and should stop. But I think it's going to actually be the opposite. He's going to outlive everybody. You just wait and see. Wait and see. If you're not around to wait and see, then we'll send you an email. Don't worry. Moving on. Curse of the Guardian, and bouncing off of what Martin Moose said. The machine reviews are in, and they're not good. Don't get me wrong. There's talk about the movie not breaking even in the theaters, which is understandable considering most movies just cost too much to make anyway, so it's hard to break even in the first place. And also, it was not the most heavily marketed movie. It wasn't available in a lot of places, especially here internationally in the UK. It was only available for like one date to watch across cinemas. If you weren't around, you couldn't watch it, so that's annoying. So all those things kind of hampered its opening day release. But I'm not surprised that with some reviewers it's not doing that great, considering that, it's not a movie that is involved in the cultural war stuff. It's not a movie that's going to be platforming people and diversity nonsense. It's just a movie about a fucking self-indulgent drunk dude that made up this story, right? There's nothing else to it. It's not going to tick any other boxes. So it's not surprising it's not going to do well with these kind of review platforms like The Guardian. But I'm also wouldn't be surprised if people who watched it actually said it's fun and interesting and a good time. Because like I said before, there's so many movies in Hollywood and the cinemas now and the movies where they're just super ideologically possessed. Loads of politics ingrained in it. It's hard to kind of get in on it and kind of vibe with it and make, have a good time with these sort of things. So it wouldn't surprise me if this movie does well just because it's just decent. You know what I mean? That's what it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. If it's just decent enough, ticks the boxes, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if that's the case. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, so far in The Guardian is saying that it didn't do well. So it kind of is what it is, isn't it? It kind of is what it is. Big up Bert for doing kind of well and not doing well, and doing kind of well and not doing well. Anyways. This has been episode number 113 of The Random Show. Thanks for tuning in as per usual. Been a pleasure to have your company. If it's the first time checking out the show, please make sure you smash the likes for me down below. That'd be greatly appreciated. There'll be another episode coming up soon after this, so don't delay. If you feel like this is a bit rushed, I will have time to come back. Do not hesitate and do not worry, do not fret. I will be back very soon. But for now, we'll have to end it, and I'll be back again very, very soon. Take care, my friends. Peace.